Hey.
Hi.
Welcome to
back.
episode 7 of the Hell Money Podcast.
Welcome to, this episode is going to be about Bitcoin maxi culture.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty loose
Pretty loose.
here.
I mean, do we really want to get into it? Don't we have, like, Italy to talk about?
Yeah. No, we have a lot to talk about. Well, I mean, this episode definitely will be somewhat unstructured because I'm still jet lagged. I just got back from Europe.
Right? Yeah, she smells like cannolis.
Yeah, hence why we released episode 0, the forgotten lost
Yeah, we had to
episode.
dig back into the archives to make sure that you got your fix of, that our 40 subscribers got their fix of Hell Money Podcast content
It's hump
every
day.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it's hump day. You got to. So
You needed to get over the hump.
Yeah, so we're recording again. I just got back yesterday. I had an amazing time.
How was Italy?
It was awesome. I went to like the Roman ruins. I didn't realize that like there's a whole like area that just is
in
like
the middle of Rome that's like
untouched
grassland and like not really grassland but like just archaeological digs.
Yeah. And it's like it was buried completely. Which I also it's like impossible for me to understand how like Rome ended and then everyone just was like and like it was just like covered in dirt. Yeah,
this is the crazy. And you see all of those. Like I remember at a family friend's house when I was a kid, he had all of these etchings or engravings, like European like engravings, and they showed this dilapidated Rome, like this dark ages of Rome. Like Rome went from being a city of like I think at least 1 million.
It was
people,
1 million people, yeah,
down to like a village of a few thousands.
I don't understand why they wouldn't like still use these like giant buildings. Like the giant buildings were literally just like buried. Like I don't understand how like it went from being like a town square to being like, let's just not touch that area. I mean, it's so pristine.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
They just take so much upkeep. Like, I mean, who's gonna like upkeep the the Colosseum and like I don't know, are people really gonna live in the Colosseum? I think people did live in the Colosseum.
Yeah, so I think for a while, like during the decline and sort of like transitioning out of the decline, the Colosseum was used for like multi-purposes. Like you could like rent like a couple of the rooms at the bottom because they had all these like
get a
cells.
hoe and like go to.
No, not like a hotel, but like a place to like keep your animals.
No, I said to get a hoe and then go to the Colosseum.
Like a woman?
Yeah, like a woman, like rent like by the hour, you know.
No, but it wasn't like that kind of renting a room. It was like I need a place to put my cows.
Oh yeah, right, yeah.
Because they had all these cells. Because they had all the places where like the animals.
I don't know
and
if they put cows in
gladiators.
cells.
Well, like it was like a stable, you know, it'd be like a secure place to like keep your livestock or like protect them. Like, so for a while, I think like the Colosseum at least had like some sort of purpose and use after like the fall or like during the fall. But like all of these insane like temples and palaces and everything just like completely
nobody used them, just covered in dirt. Yeah. No, I think it's wild. I think that's so fascinating to think about like what used to be the major city of this empire going to like nothing. Like just like farmers, you know, and like some dude like watching a sheep like his elbow resting on like this giant statue of Hercules, right?
Like what would even be like because also, you know, obviously the whole time I was thinking like, oh, I feel like I'm in the Empire of Rome, like living in America and like someday it will fall. Like maybe I feel like we're in like the transition, like the Pax Romana, like the 200 years or whatever.
Yeah, like the Pax Americana.
Best.
Right.
I feel like Pax Americana was like shorter, but it was like from like the 40s or 50s, like post World War II to like Obama or something. And then like Trump is now
ended it.
Now we're in like the trend, but then it still took like 300 years for Rome to fall.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when we're seeing that, I mean, I think undoubtedly the US seems to be less not as of like primary importance on the world stage to some degree. Not like we've fallen entirely, but it seems like it's more of a multipolar world with China sort of emerging and being incredibly strong.
Well, I think also like the Pax Romana, like what struck me in terms of similarities to the US was that like within Rome, it was like the best like peaceful place to live, but that relied on Rome like constantly like conquesting, pillaging, like exploiting basically. And I feel like that is kind of like what the US's vibe was for a long time, was like people in the US were like very isolated from like any sort of like war at home, violence at home, like kind of stuff. And now we're like starting to like get things like things feel a little shakier.
Yeah, right,
violence
right,
feels
right,
a little
right.
bit more like at your, but like
Yeah.
9/11 maybe could be like a turning point as
Right.
well. Like you could argue that as well. But like, yeah, just, it's not that like Pax Romana was actually a time where like Rome was at peace. It was like Rome
was at war just on the edges.
exactly.
Of
And
the
if
empire.
you lived in Rome, it was just like people coming in all the time with like their caravans of booty, and you'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, Rome must have been wild, just
Yeah.
like popping off. It must have been great to be a Roman.
I know. I was also thinking, like, if I lived in Rome, like, who would I be in society? Because, like, do you know what, like, the Vestal Virgins are?
No.
So there was, like, the eternal flame of Rome that was, like, in, like, the Vestal
You qualify
Virgins.
to be a Vestal Virgin?
Well, I think you get picked when you're 10.
Okay,
you get picked when you're 10.
okay.
So, like, I feel like... So the Vestal Virgins, there were, like, 9 of them at a time, and they served 30-year tenures from, like, starting at, like, age 10-ish, or, like, maybe a little earlier. And basically, like, there was, like, the Vestal Virgins, like, estate where they all lived together, and they just, like, had, like, a beautiful courtyard, and they just, like, you know, just hung out and, like, gossiped or whatever. And then they had, like, the temple where the eternal flame of Rome was burning, and their only job between the 9 of them was to just keep the fire going and never let it go out. And they got, like, box seats, like, the level of the emperor for, like, the gladiator fights, and they were, like, very, like, esteemed, like, everyone loved them. And then when their term was done, when they were, like, 40, they just got, like, a dowry, and they could get married.
Interesting.
So they didn't have to stay virgins forever. They just had to stay virgins, like, basically past child rearing age.
Right.
But then, like, they could retire and, like, live a normal life if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But if they, like, you know, had sex or, like, had romantic relations with men, they would be, like, buried alive for everyone to see. Yeah. But I feel like...
Trade-offs, you know?
I feel like I could do it. And I feel like that is, like, not the worst trade-off. Like, I feel like being a woman at, like, pretty much every period of history.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like,
honestly, like, not having kids or the risk of pregnancy back then
kind of a
seems
blessing.
like a good deal, right?
Yeah.
I always think, no good. No bueno.
No, and, like, lots of women make that, like, deal now to not have kids, like, for their career or for their whatever.
Right,
like, it's not, like, so unheard of to, like, not have children.
Yeah, totally.
Like, for that level of, like, security, safety, honor, whatever, like, sounds amazing to me. But I wish
I think that I would be getting such a good deal in Rome.
Well, no,
I'm a Jew, so I'd just be getting fed to lions.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be getting disemboweled by, like, you know, like a hawk or something. While some Christians were like,
well, I think the Vestal Virgins would be, like, the best
case scenario.
Yeah. But I think in actuality, what I would be is, like, so, like, towards the fall of Rome, Christianity, like, started becoming the thing. So, like, first it was paganism. So, like, you know, the planet gods and all this shit.
The Jews must have been around when the pagans were going. I mean, in a minor way. You know?
I think the Jews generally in Italy, like, they had, like, their ghetto. Like, that's where the term ghetto comes from, is, like, the Jewish ghettos, like, in Rome, where, like, they mostly just were able to, like, live in their own area. Because weren't they useful? I guess you said they were useful for, like, Christianity and stuff later.
I think what I was talking about was, like, court Jews, and that had to do with, like, a medieval prohibition on usury, which came a lot later.
Yeah. But I think there was, like, I think they did, like, play certain roles in, like, the greater society, but mostly they were just, like, very, like, sectioned off to their own area.
Yeah.
But, like, when paganism was the dominant, like, Roman religion, you could be, like, killed for being a Christian.
Right.
But then within, like, 80 years, like, it was, like 80 years of time, Christianity went from being, like, illegal, like, you could be, like, put in the gladiator fights and, like, killed for sport, to being, like, no, this is the religion, and if you're not a Christian, actually, it's...
Yeah, it's just so crazy. Like, I know the story of how that happened. Like, I think some Roman emperor, like Constantine converted to Christianity, and then he was just like, that's it, and then, like, everybody went along with it. Like, that's crazy. I think there's something about monotheism. Like, I think in some way monotheism is inevitable. That
I disagree.
No. I don't mean in any sort of, like, monotheism is correct or monotheism is right. I guess I mean that for some reason monotheism seems very convincing to people.
I think it's, like, just an evolution of consciousness that happened that will, like, change again. Because now I think monotheism is not convincing to people. Not that polytheism... Well, actually, polytheism...
I mean, look at the percentage. Like, the major religions are Christianity, Islam, I mean, Judaism is the distant, like, eighth or something, but like, what's number 3 after?
No, but I think in 100 years that like won't be the case. Like, I think like
I disagree. I think that monotheism is here to stay.
I think monotheism, the age of monotheism is over. That was like the last 2,000 years. And now we're like entering like a new agey, like polytheistic or whatever. God is the universe kind of
like
thing.
Like the pendulum model where we swing towards monotheism and then back towards paganism.
So I think that what I would have been in Rome, like Vestal Virgins would be the best, but I think what I actually would be in Rome is I would have been like a Christian right before like it became
got cool to be Christian.
And I would be like paranoid, like I'd be like, oh, like I don't want anyone to know because I could be killed. Like I'd be watching the gladiator fights from like the plebeian seats, being like
trying to be maybe I'm supposed to be enthusiastic about this guy getting disemboweled.
Yeah, I would be like paranoid and like, but then like I would betray myself by like getting drunk at the tavern and like being like, I love Jesus. Jesus is amazing. Because that's what I feel.
But I mean, you're such a pagan, right? So why don't you think that you would be a pagan then?
Because I think like if you place me on the like scale,
you're sort of contrarian.
I'm on the new contrarian. Cusp. No. I'm on the new cusp of the new thing.
I see.
Like Christianity was like the thing, and now I think we're like moving into like a new new agey spirituality thing, and like now I'm like the astrologer who's like being secretive but not really, and and someday like I'll be the emperor and I'll be like I'm gonna kill you for your religion.
Anybody who doesn't know Bitcoin's horoscope by heart
it's
gets
over.
the axe.
Exactly. So that's actually who I think I like would be in Roman society. But it's just like so I feel like there's so many parallels that can be drawn from like the fall of Rome and like that transition to now. And it's just like so, I mean, astrologically too, you can draw a lot of parallels, but like, it's just so fascinating to like there's this painting, the painting I told you about, that's like in the Pope's apartment in the Vatican on the ceiling. There was this painting of like the Christian cross, like, Jesus on the cross on like a pedestal, like a Greek pedestal. And then in front of him is like a shattered and destroyed Roman Greek statue.
It's just crazy how fast that transition went. And like, it doesn't seem like there were real holdouts. Like it also didn't cause a lot of upheaval in the empire. It's not like, they switched to Christianity and they had like 100 years of war while they routed out. They were just like, whatever.
Yeah.
This is the thing. I think polytheism is in a way is kind of weak. Like you have all these gods and you're like, they're all kind of good. And I don't deny the other gods. I believe they exist. And then somebody comes along and I have one God. All your gods are trash. Believe in my one God. And people are like, let's go. Like, this is the way.
But I think polytheism like can be more solid in that like it's easy to lose faith in one God when like your church becomes corrupt or whatever. Like so many people, like if I say like, Jesus or whatever to like people that like were raised Christian and have like trauma, they like recoil at that word. But if I'm like, the universe, or like the energy, then they're like a little bit more open to that. So I think it is like a product of the time.
That makes a lot of sense to me because you get a lot of people these days who are sort of like spiritual in some kind of like non-specific way. And if you look at their beliefs, they're really much closer to like animists or pagans than monotheists.
Right. So I think it's just that like things cycle through and like the pagan god view just sort of like died out because people were like not that into it clearly. And then like Christianity, like there was a vigor behind it. There was just like something that like propelled it forward. And then that's what people did for a while was monotheism. And now like, I don't know if we're headed towards like polytheism so much as like maybe like the universe, the energy, I mean, animism, the vibes.
Right? It's even a pre-polytheism like animism, like almost like Shinto, where everything has a spirit.
Yeah, well, I've been reading the book that I wanted to give you to read. That's like an esoteric astrology text about like why astrology is the thing that it is, and like also like the thesis of the book is like the like evolution of consciousness that we went through from like the primal worldview of like what you're talking about, where like the river is a spirit, like the mountain is a spirit, like God, love is a God. There's like many gods that are all like different like things to polytheism, where like humans are separate from those things, like the river, the mountain, the whatever, and humans actually are like the thing that can connect to God. Like God is like something that like we as humans are like specifically able to connect to in a way that like nature cannot, because like we are separate.
Right.
That like that was like part of, and with that also came like the scientific revolution and like a lot of like technological developments, because all of a sudden we like saw ourselves as like singularly separate from nature, and nature was like no longer a god to be revered, but rather like something that could be manipulated and like controlled or like understood from like a higher perspective that like we were at that was close to God. That like now what we're moving into is like a reintegration of like the primal worldview, but instead of viewing things as like the primal worldview was like sort of obsessed with like fatalism in a way of being like, if the mountain like decides to erupt and like the lava flows down, like we die, and that's what God wanted. Like that's what that God wanted. That now like we're reintegrating that worldview, but we're viewing it as like an archetype through which like we still have that like individual perspective of control, but we're like acknowledging that like maybe God isn't this like guy in the sky. It's like, it is like all of these different spirits, but that like also we are like independent individuals that like have free will to act like within those things and like in relationship with those things. That's like my theory of like, not my theory, but that's like kind of like what I believe in terms of like astrological evolution or like the evolution of consciousness. So that's why I want you to read that book.
You'll have to give me the book. Like,
yeah, you have to read it.
We'll see. Even if I don't agree, I want to understand it. I want to understand the astrological worldview.
Yeah, that's what I want you to understand. I want you to like, well, also because like, I mean, so yeah, as I was like going through all these like parallels to like Christianity to now, or like Roman Empire to now, like those transitions and seeing them as parallel, I was like flipping between thinking of it as like what I just described to you as like my spiritual thesis, and then being like Bitcoin, like imagining like Bitcoin on the pedestal, like crumble.
The fiat dollar.
Because then when I opened Twitter, there was some guy, I don't know, did you see the guy who like drew like a very detailed drawing of like Bitcoin as Jesus?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Like,
and yeah, he drew a great like tableau, and then he just put this Bitcoin B over Jesus' chest in the middle. I thought it would look better without the B.
No, but that's like it is.
Satoshi
like,
died on the cross for our sins.
Ross
Satoshi made the Genesis block Coinbase reward unspendable so that we might live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was like our original sin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, okay, first of all,
I mean, Bitcoin does kind of have the original sin story. Like, I mean, it has in the Genesis block, right? Like bailout. Like,
in the beginning.
Yeah. Bitcoin is a very, like, I want to use the word exegesis, but I don't actually know what that means. Exegesis. Not Exexigisas. It's some sort of, but I don't know what it means. I just want to use that word.
Okay. Yeah, it just feels that way.
Yeah. But it's like some sort of like radical, like, you know, like the world that we lived in before was like sinful. And like now, like we're like, there's like penitence, and there's this chaos as we restructure towards like the Bitcoin world. And like we all find like the true, like, I mean, you know, like savior, you know, monetary savior.
Well, that was like that, his whole thread after that drawing was like, before, you know, Bitcoin, my life was like meaningless. And like now I've like realized the value of like hard work and like the follies of like the fiat based world that it is this like savior kind of vibe.
This is a really interesting thing. I mean, like, because we're going to talk about Bitcoin maximalism, like how much does Bitcoin fix? Does Bitcoin fix everything? Because some people are like, fix the money, fix the world.
I mean, Michael Saylor says that he thinks that Bitcoin would fix 50% of the world's problems.
Yeah, damn. That is wild. That is wild.
50%.
Yeah.
But that also is like the like WTF happened in 1971. Like that website also sort of like operates under that thesis where it's like all of these like, and everything bad happened when we had like super fiat. Like it's the same sort of thing where it's like, oh, well, divorce rates are high. Bitcoin might fix that.
Yeah. I like this. I like this worldview. I mean, I find it very
I think it's fascinating.
Enticing. I don't know if I believe in it. I'm like, maybe like the money's bad, but the money doesn't cause all the problems. And so like, you know, things get like 20% better.
Yeah, you know? I think 20% would be like a good estimate.
But then I start thinking about like, damn, like what if we really start like defunding governments and they have to like beg for money to like fund shit? And like maybe we don't have any wars. Maybe we don't have these like colossally wasteful like programs. Like maybe like the government has to just switch to like easier forms of taxation. Like maybe the government just has to do like sales tax and like a land tax.
I mean, if Bitcoin made it harder for countries to go to war, then like maybe it would fix 50% of the problems.
Right. Yeah.
But it also is like, you know, The only thing, okay, I saw Jordan Peterson at the Bitcoin
I've started calling
conference.
her Jordana Peterson because sometimes I feel like I'm listening to a Jordan Peterson video when she's talking.
Okay, I have a very complicated view of Jordan Peterson that like has
yeah,
evolved
sure you
over
do,
time.
Jordana.
But at Bitcoin Miami, I only agreed with one thing he said the entire talk, like the entire 45 minutes, which is not typical of me and Jordan.
Yeah.
But I only agreed with one thing, and the one thing I agreed with was his opinion on Bitcoin, which is that like, you know, Bitcoin might solve all of these problems, and like you can like believe wholeheartedly like, I love Bitcoin, I want Bitcoin to succeed because it's going to solve all these problems, but you can never know the problems that will be created from like any sort of radical change. And so like, I mean, he's basically just a conservative. Like he's like, we shouldn't change things radically because it's risky.
It's really interesting that conservatives, like Bitcoin has like this like sort of tends to have a more right-wing conservative sort of, you know, vibe alignment, right? That we observe on Twitter. But it's not conservative. It's like, we're gonna have digital internet money. Like that doesn't sound very conservative to me, bro.
Well, you could argue it's conservative in that like it makes people incentivized to conserve.
Yeah. It's aligned with conservative values in many ways.
Yeah.
But the form of it isn't conservative at all.
No.
The form of it is like wild.
No, I mean, honestly, I think like liberal, conservative, like those words like sort of mean nothing.
The liberal conservative dyad isn't real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that people are even like, oh, libs, like libertarians are like, I hate libs.
Yeah.
It's like, you're a lib.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah,
definitionally,
yeah.
you're a lib.
Yeah.
Like libs of TikTok, like all of this sort of like whatever performativeness around like liberals and libs. And it's like any conservative like talking head is probably just a liberal. Like most Americans are liberals.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
We're all liberal. That's the projection. We're all liberals. But yeah, I mean, should we kind of just started getting into...
Yeah, I don't know if you want to like...
I did want to ask you, where were you?
Oh yeah, but one other thing. Check out our Dolly thread, our Dolly Bitcoin thread on Twitter, on the Twitter account. I spent all day taking requests from Bitcoiners for Bitcoin-related prompts for Dolly and the image generation, the AI image generation thing, and I fed them into Dolly and then posted them on Twitter. So
you did so well.
Yeah.
They were so good. I want a Dolly version of Bitcoin with Jesus shattered, like on the floor.
Oh, we
like,
can do that.
I think it's I think that's like a good Dolly prompt. Because I was trying to come
Remind me, I have access to it, so we can do it after the episode.
Okay, great. Let's do that. We can promo the episode with that.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, write that down.
And as long as we're not making any money on the podcast, we can use Dolly Jesus.
Yeah, that's my request, because so far I don't think you've done any of my requests.
Oh, no.
You did some for me, but not at my request.
Oh, yeah, I'll do whatever you want. Just make it clear. I didn't
I want Bitcoin on the pedestal.
I didn't realize you were requesting. You got to be more firm.
But I'm curious I feel like that would be very evocative art to see like Bitcoin on the pedestal and Jesus shattered. Like I want to know
some people super hard.
I want to know what Bitcoin Twitter would think of that.
Oh, yeah.
Like
because that is a very, I think like Christianity has a lot of the time been like in some ways like radically anti-finance, right? Like the Jesus and the money lenders, right?
Well, if you like followed Jesus's teachings, like you should be, right? Like rich people can't get into heaven type shit.
Right.
But like in actuality.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is that it's kind of like spicy content because it gets to some conflict within a lot of people's beliefs.
Yeah, I think it would be very evocative. I think people would have very different responses to it. And yeah, it could be beautiful.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll make that. My question, where were you when CERN turned up the what? Yeah, wait, let me try.
The Large Hadron Collider.
The Large Hadron
I always think that it's like
Hadron?
it's like a docking porno.
Yeah, I mean, it basically is.
Yeah, Large Hadron Collider. What is a fucking hadron?
I don't know, but it's like a tube where they collide like electrons or protons or whatever.
I mean, I know what a collider is. I just mean like a hadron. Like, and did we have is it big hadrons? Are there bigger hadrons in this collider?
I think the hadron is the collider.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. I think it's like the type of machinery or something.
Gotcha.
It's like the methodology.
Yeah.
but that could be totally wrong. But a hadron's definitely not a particle. Okay. It's not the things that are colliding. I think it's the collider itself.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that happened at like 9-10 a.m. PST yesterday. Were you asleep?
Asleep, yeah.
That's actually probably not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I mean,
have you heard the conspiracy theories?
If it rips a hole in the universe and we all die, I want to be snoozing.
No, but it's not that it rips a hole in the universe and we all die. It's like it rips a hole in like it's like a Mandela effect kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Where like it rips a hole in reality so that like it's like witchcraft or something. Like the CERN, this is a conspiracy theory. Like the CERN people, well, actually there's many conflicting conspiracy theories.
I've heard that it's going to create a mini black hole that's going to suck up the world.
I think that's like I don't want to say that's the rational concern.
That's like the normie
the
version
materialist
of the
concern. Is that we don't know what this is going to do, and like colliding these particles could like, create a bunch of dark matter, open a dark like black hole, whatever. Like we don't know. That's like the normie concern.
Yeah.
But then like
give me the unhinged
like CERN is 666 like whatever like conspiracy theory. That is that like CERN is like colliding these particles in order to create like a rift in the multiverse so that they can like manifest their like occult.
Right.
Like it's basically witchcraft. Basically they're like doing like this spell, this ritual that's like going to like bring in the New World Order or whatever the fuck. And so like during the like collision or like when they turned up the collider or whatever, you're supposed to be like in your highest vibration, like manifesting good vibes so that you can counteract their bad vibes and will be like propelled into like an evolution into the 5D consciousness.
Oh, dude, I like this.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
So there were like a bunch of tweets that were like people being like, they did it the day after July 4th because they knew that everyone was going to be drunk on the 4th of July and their vibes would be low.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you know that the US is only one country among many and that other people don't drink on the 4th of July? But
I like the idea that the scientists believe this too.
Yeah.
And so they're like trying to optimize for when they turn on the collider to boost everybody's vibes and the maximal.
Well, to lower everyone's vibes so that they can like bring in like the bug eating New World Order. That's the idea. It's like
but if they were trying to do it not when everybody was drunk, then aren't they doing it at a time when people's vibes are good so that it'll propel us to the
No, they want to do it when people are hungover because their vibes will be low.
I see.
It's July 5th.
Gotcha.
So like you get drunk on the 4th of July, and then you're hungover, your vibes are all fucked up on July 5th.
Bug people.
9 a.m.
Yeah, right.
They come in.
Yeah.
But if you were sleeping, I think that's actually not a bad place to be because I feel
pretty energetically neutral, pretty karmically neutral at that time.
And you can kind of move around. Like you're not like...
You mean like shifting while I sleep? Like...
like energetically,
okay. Vibrationally,
Because I feel like if you're like doing something negative at that time, like imagine you're like working like your Bugman job or something, and then they like turn up the collider, and it's like you're all of a sudden like you've manifested like a Bugman life.
Yeah.
Like sleeping from 9 to 10 a.m. on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
You're kind of manifesting like not the worst situation.
Right. Yeah.
I was on a plane. I was on a 12-hour
I don't know how to feel
flight.
about that. That's not great. Planes are awful.
Well, I thought, like, I was like, maybe the black hole will open and our plane will fly through the black hole. You know? Like, we'll look down and we'll see the black hole. And
Or, like, the Earth is destroyed, right? And only the planes circling the Earth are left, you know? And you get a few more hours before, like, you get flung into the void of space to think about. If
it created a black hole, then maybe we would just go through the black hole.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, the Earth would become a black hole and then we go through the black hole and we end up in this, like, totally different reality or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, maybe a plane's a good place to be because I'm like a little separate.
Right.
And then like the pilot can just like fly us in.
Fly into the black hole. Yeah. Really hard to tell though. You're really hard to tell. I feel like with a plane you're rolling the dice.
You're rolling the dice, absolutely. But I wasn't like I was like near Switzerland before and I was flying away from Switzerland. So that might be good.
Yeah, right. Escaping the,
the vibration.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious if like Europe just turned into like just crater. Europe is just green glass, like radioactive green glass after the collider goes and we're like, shit, like...
Yeah, I think the unfortunate...
all that Swiss chocolate, everything just smells like Swiss chocolate because Switzerland got vaporized.
I think the unfortunate truth about CERN is like that CERN has actually delivered like very boring and lame results.
All it's done is being like, yeah, like the standard model's like pretty correct, but it hasn't given us, as far as I know, very much new science at all.
No, they don't know what dark matter is. They've got the Higgs boson. Who cares? It's really. I mean, I feel like they had to turn it up because it was like
and these projects are super expensive, incredibly expensive, and they're these like sort of like ego projects for politicians. They're politicians like burning money in like big, expensive, like gestural ways. And
what makes us feel like we're like on the cusp of something great. It's like, this is our purpose as humanity. It's like discover these big things and we're doing it. And then it's like, actually we've discovered like almost nothing. And like we've thrown all this money into it.
Ask scientists who are like very pro like big projects like the Large Hadron Collider and ask them, do you think that the cost benefit is worth it? Like, we're spending this money on this thing and it's going to have some cost and it's going to have some benefit. And like, compare that to the things we could be spending the money on otherwise. Like, do you think it's worth it? Right.
But that's like the argument for like any, funding of the arts or research. It's like, you can always be like, oh, but like funding these like pursuits of human excellence is like,
that's
worth
why
any cost.
That's why I'm like against all those things. Like slash the funding for the arts. If the Large Hadron Collider is a good thing, like let the markets provide it. Like
let the markets create the Large Hadron Collider. No, I mean, I think that like, whatever, I don't feel strongly any sort of way about government funding the Hadron Collider or whatever. I think it's just sort of like telling of like the golden age of physics being done.
Yeah. It's actually all the low hanging fruit is done, right? And even the Large Hadron Collider, right? Like we used to be able to build colliders. If you go up to the Berkeley Hills, I don't know if you've seen it. There's like outside of the Lawrence Hall of Science, there's this like tiny collider. It's like would fit in this room.
Yeah.
And we built that and we got useful results out of that. And we've just been like squeezing the lemon harder and harder. Now we have this like giant European collider that is between like it's in France.
With like a 666 logo. And like Shiva the Destroyer outside. And all we get is just like tweets about the vibes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I do think like the fixation, I mean, I don't know for you, maybe you're just in like a different internet bubble from me, but like my timeline was like TikTok, Twitter, like everything was nonstop.
Oh yeah, I wasn't paying attention. Yeah.
It was like so many people being like, this is what you should do. This is what they're planning. Wow. Like whatever, like all this shit.
Lots of people were like retweeting this and like responding. Wow.
So much, like it was so many people just being like, guys, like don't freak out, but you have to make sure your vibes are high. So like detox before.
Do people believe this? Like,
so I think, I mean, it is crazy to think that people believe that, like in like a true sense of the word, that they actually believe that like the scientists at CERN are like purposely creating a hole in the multiverse so that they can like manifest the New World Order.
Yeah.
But I think like it's not so much that people like believe that like they just want it to be true on like a very deep level because they're so dissatisfied and upset with the current world, whether that's like personal or like societal, whatever. Like
I remember when I was young, I really wanted magic to be real. Like when I was a little kid, I was like kind of miserable, didn't like my home life. I was like, and the idea that like maybe I could become a wizard was like
the Hogwarts letter never came.
Yeah, the Hogwarts letter never came. Yeah. So I can imagine a lot of people kind of being like, like they want this additional layer of meaning.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So I think when there are dates, like it's like CERN is going to turn up the collider on July 5th. Like when people get like events like that, it really like, even if like you just like explained it to them in like a non-event form, or like they had to like explain like, I think the scientists at CERN are doing blah, blah, blah thing. Like they might not believe that, but the fact that there's this deadline that they can look forward to, like allows them to suspend disbelief so that like they can fixate on that.
Yeah.
And I think, it's like my first experience of that, like personally, was like December 21st, 2012. Like the end of the, like the end of the Mayan calendar.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
That whole meme. I feel like that was like not the first one, because obviously people have been doing prophecy doomsday like forever.
People love that shit.
But I feel like December 21st, 2012 was like such a meme, like where people were like, this is it. And I was in like 10th grade, 11th grade, something like that at the time. Yeah, I was in 11th grade. And I remember I was having like problems with my boyfriend. Like it was just a lot of drama with like his parents and like all this shit. And I like wrote in my diary, like on December 20th, I was like, I hope that the world ends tomorrow so that like all the bullshit can be dropped and like we can be together. Like in my mind, like that's what it could be. And it's like, fuck it if that means like everyone dies and like there's chaos in the streets or whatever.
At least my
like,
problems with my boyfriend will be resolved.
We'll realize what's important, which is our love for each other at the end of the world. Like that was how I felt. And I think like that, like, I mean, I like reread that in my diary like not that long ago, and it really made me think like that's what people ultimately like feel that the end of the world could be, is this like, even if they die, even if like shit hits the fan, it's terrible. It's like this moment of like meaning that draws them out of their like meaningless and depressing lives that like all of us feel like we're in right now. And it's like, I just think every day should be the day that CERN turns on the Large Hadron Collider.
Just every day, it's just cranking the juice up a little bit, right?
Well, every
so we
day
can just be in our toes.
Yeah, you should always be like thinking, like, is my life miserable and meaningless? And like, how can I make it less meaningless? Like, don't just wait for July 5th for like...
I feel like everybody's just, if they're just going to wait for the collider to turn on and like wipe everything away, like you did with the Mayan calendar, being like, maybe this will fix my problems with my boyfriend.
Yeah, I think it is just, it's something like in human nature. Maybe it's like a sign of the times. I don't know. It's just like people love dates. They love the reckoning.
Absolutely. Yeah, the reckoning. Yeah, people love the reckoning. Yeah.
Maybe we can transition into talking about Bitcoin maxis with that, because Bitcoin maxis love the reckoning as well.
Yeah, Bitcoin maxis do love the reckoning.
Yeah, I mean...
We've got to define what Bitcoin maximalism is, which I actually think is really, really hard, because I think there's a bunch of different versions of it. And I'm honestly not exactly sure what the canonical version of Bitcoin maximalism is. I
mean, I think like the most basic like rung of the Bitcoin maxi structure would be that like you believe that Bitcoin is by far the best option for money.
Yeah. I mean, like, so I believe that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think like both of us are technically maxis. I feel like you're begrudgingly a maxi.
Well, I just don't like, it's like, you know, I'm not into like ideologies, you know? So like I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. A lot of my beliefs are practically those of a Bitcoin maximalist, but the way that I arrive at them, I hope, is through like, you know, rational reasoning and looking at other options and not being like orange coin good.
Right, but then you can still be a Bitcoin maxi if reality is a Bitcoin maxi, right?
Right, yeah. I'm a Bitcoin maxi because reality is a Bitcoin maxi.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think that technically like a Bitcoin maxi is anybody who believes that Bitcoin is like just the best option and that there's really no competition.
Right,
and I think maybe above that would be
we should do like, what are the rungs of Bitcoin maximalism? We've got like the basic rung, and here as we ascend up to the heavens.
Yeah.
So the basic rung is just like Bitcoin is best money.
Bitcoin is, hard money is great.
You got to take over.
Oh no.
Best
Bitcoin
money.
is
best money.
Best money.
Yeah. The two genders.
Bitcoin's best money.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I think there's like, and maybe like I feel like you fall off at some point, maybe. But I think on top of that is like Bitcoin is like sort of an inevitability. Like this feeling that like Bitcoin will be the thing. Like Bitcoin
that's
is
actually
like,
exactly what I was going to say. Is like the next rung up. I would
it's
say
like fatalism, not fatalism.
Well, it's like there
determinism or something.
I think it's that there will never be anything better than Bitcoin.
Yeah, that there is no improvement. And I'm going to run out of space.
You can do a second line. We've got a little space there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That Bitcoin can't be challenged.
Bitcoin is the best.
Yeah,
like,
not just that Bitcoin is the best, but that there will never be anything that is able to challenge it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I think actually I fall off like right here. I don't think that...
Well, okay, but I think this is a
Wait, let me clarify, because I don't want to get like Bitcoin canceled.
Sure.
I think that Bitcoin is the best money, and it's likely that there will never be anything better than Bitcoin. But I don't think that like there couldn't be something better.
Well, how could you
Bitcoin.
Ever know? It's just like, that's like hubristic to even think that you could know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people, were... the Bitcoin like true believers will go to bat for that. They will be like, no, there can never be anything better than Bitcoin. Bitcoin makes the optimal set of trade-offs. Anything that's created outside of Bitcoin will just absorb its best properties
and continue evolving.
And continue, yeah.
I mean, I think like, well, so I feel like I don't believe this, but what I would say I like do believe, I think, is that like, I think Bitcoin maximalism is inevitable. Like, I think like inevitably, like Bitcoin's positive qualities will make it the next paradigm.
Yeah, right.
So that I think is also like, I feel like there's a part of maximalism that's like based in belief in Bitcoin. And then there's a part of maximalism that's based in like betting on the winning horse kind of thing, where it's like, my horse is going to win. I'm going to ape into this because like it's going to be the thing. And I know it's going to be the thing. And I think like I have like an element of that where it's like, I feel like I am like, not like I'm able to predict the future, but I feel like there's like this feeling around Bitcoin where people are just like, this is the thing.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is the thing that's going to change everything. And like, I know it. Like,
it has a
deep in my heart.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know? So I think this is maybe like, not that this is a rational answer, that there will never be anything better than Bitcoin, but that's like the rationalist approach is like, well, there's not going to be anything better than Bitcoin. But then there's this like spiritual, like deep knowing approach of like, I know that this is the thing.
Right.
Like, I know that this is the best thing. Whether that's like forever or not, I know that this is like the next thing.
And that's you or that isn't you?
That's me.
Okay. Gotcha,
I think it's the next thing.
Right,
like, I feel
it's
like
a very like energetics based approach. Like the energetics of Bitcoin are like superior and like winning and going to continue to win.
Exactly. Like I could be a no coiner and opt out of Bitcoin and I still think Bitcoin will succeed. Or I could be a part of Bitcoin and like be on, you know, the right vibe, the next thing, you know,
have
be on the pedestal with Jesus shattered under.
Podcast. Peter McCormick, we are coming for you.
We're coming
for your English ass, all right?
Exactly. So like I do think, there's some love, like there's a little bit of a divide in terms of like, and maybe this is like devs or like more of like the, you know, the tech side of things that like have this like practical maximalism. And then there's like the spiritual maximalism.
Right. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit, like devs versus non-devs and how they tend to differ. I feel like devs tend to have a much, much more measured viewpoint. And so none of the devs I know are really like hardcore Bitcoin maximalists. Like they just tend to not be. I don't know why that is. I mean, I think maybe it's just that they are more absorbed with the details of the technology and tend to have a very nuanced opinion. Like they tend to have nuanced opinions about what Bitcoin's strengths are, what Bitcoin's weaknesses are, how it could be improved. And so they're less likely to take a very hardline approach that you see on like vocal Bitcoin maximalists on Twitter.
Well, I think like it's like the nature of being, like coming from a more rationalist perspective and like coming from like working inside the thing. Like I feel like I'm a scientist and I feel like I'm the most pessimistic person talking about science in a room sometimes. Like when I'm amongst people who are not scientists, but are like, believe in science. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, like people will tell you how amazing the thing that you work on the minutia of is, like, because they don't know the minutia.
Right.
And I think like it's sort of like the nature of anything is like once you get into the minutia, you're going to become like less enchanted with it. Yeah. But I wonder, like, I mean, people who work on Bitcoin, like who become devs, maybe not now, since now it's like Bitcoin or crypto or whatever is so big that it's like not so unheard of to just like go into cryptocurrency or go into Bitcoin like as a coder. But like 10 years ago or whatever, 10 years ago, 10 years ago or however long, like when it was not a thing, like people who really were like working as devs, like being super into it, like do you feel like they had more of like the spiritual maximalism to them?
No, I don't think so.
You think it's always been like practical, rational?
Yeah. And also, you know, you hear a lot of things like devs that you expect would have a lot of money by now because they've been working on Bitcoin for like 10 years. And you're like, yeah, you must have a crazy stash. And they're like, no, I don't. Because I bought some and then the price went up and I was like, holy shit, like we're keeping this together with like duct tape and baling wire. I'm going to sell 90% of my coins at this new high price. Yeah. They tend to be pretty practical. Yeah.
That's sad.
It is kind of sad. Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I feel like, I don't know, the dev culture around Bitcoin definitely seems like, I don't know. Do you think that's the ideal way for people? Like, I guess like we're talking about Bitcoin maxi culture because like, I feel like in the waves of Roe v. Wade, Nick Carter, I don't know, all this stuff that's happening right now.
Got to tie it all together.
Well, it's just like, I feel like people are talking about like maxi culture being toxic.
Yeah. And then
so like, what's the ideal? Is it like the more like devs approach?
You know, it's hard. Okay. So let's tangent. And I think it's like a good tangent. Like, is this a good approach? Like Bitcoin maximalism, like correct or incorrect? Another tenet of Bitcoin maximalism, and we're getting up there, is like, is everything I-N-G, but Bitcoin is a scam. And this is getting into like the real, like, this is getting into the toxic Bitcoin maximalism.
See, I kind of believe that.
Yeah. So I think this is a really interesting point, because I don't think that everything but Bitcoin is literally a scam.
Same.
Right. But if I'm talking to somebody, and I probably wouldn't tell somebody, I wouldn't use that language, everything but Bitcoin is a scam. Mm-hmm. But if we're talking about somebody who like maybe isn't super sophisticated, like maybe can't understand a lot of the technical trade-offs, I think that this is the safe, good attitude for them to hold.
Yes,
if they
agree.
think everything but Bitcoin is a scam, they're just going to stack sats. Bitcoin is going to go up and down. They're not going to care. They're not going to sell their sats, and they're going to be making the most effective investing and savings decision, like for the foreseeable future.
Yeah,
right?
like I don't think that like everything but Bitcoin is consciously a scam, but like effectively, I kind of feel like everything but Bitcoin is a scam.
Yeah.
And I think that's like,
I've thought about this a lot. Like, we don't have words for this, of saying like, it's not a scam, but it has the structure of a scam.
Well,
like the things that make a scam bad make like shitcoins bad too.
It's the same thing as like conspiracy theories, right? It's like, is there like an organized like attempt to have some certain outcome from like some political body? Oftentimes not. But like, if that is the outcome, then like, does it matter if there was like original intent or not?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, can you distinguish?
Yeah.
So I think like, it's like useful, like mythology sort of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is the Bitcoin, like, even if Bitcoin maximalism is not true, is it like healthy for the community as a mythology, as a prevailing mythology?
And I kind of think it like, I don't think that like Bitcoin maximalism is inherently toxic. Like, I actually think that like being a maxi and just like believing in the thing and working towards the thing and like just saying like fuck it to all of the like other ways that like oftentimes are like better ways to make money off of like other people or whatever. Like, I think it's like just holding to the principles of Bitcoin maximalism, like probably does produce good results. I think the toxicity around Bitcoin maximalism is not that they hate other cryptos. It's that like there's this like strange culture that is completely separate to Bitcoin that like seems to be maxi culture, which is like the steak dinner vibe, which like not even saying that like that intrinsically is bad, like being like, I'm a carnivore and like I hate seed oils or like whatever like thing they're fixated on. But like, I feel like there's this association with like Bitcoin maxis that like you also need to be all of these other things that like, that's I think where the problem comes in, is that like, I think like part of my like Bitcoin maximalism is like a belief that Bitcoin's for everyone or whatever.
But you seem like a seed oil disrespecter.
Right.
That you would be really concerned about like just the seed oils are full of microplastics.
Like kind of, I feel like the seed oil thing, like I've yet to really be convinced, but like that sort of like wellness memification, like I'm definitely like, I think that like a lot of like the Bitcoin maxi like cultural elements that don't have anything to do with Bitcoin, I often do fall into those things, except like I'm a chick. So it's just like a level of removal already. But like, I don't necessarily have a problem with any of those beliefs. It's that I think like
they don't need to, we shouldn't tie them together. We shouldn't.
Yeah, they shouldn't be
like
tied
cultural,
together.
like, locus.
I think that like it excludes people like in a way that I think is bad overall. Like, I don't think that like that group of people should be like the only people that like make it.
I want the vegan communists to use Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Like, we want them on board, right? Because they're the people that we have the most to worry about. Yeah. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Exactly.
I want AOC being like, hey, Bitcoin.
Yeah, you know? I mean, ultimately, like, I am pro like wealth redistribution type. Like, I don't think it's like good to have like one group of people that's like very sectioned off ivory tower style in like the elite positions and then like everyone else in society being lower.
Nah, let them eat cake.
it's going to create a bad society. Like if you have like only a certain political or like cultural identity that owns Bitcoin or is like super invested in Bitcoin. So like ideally it's spread out.
Yeah.
Right?
Ideally. Yeah.
Or else you're going to have a shit society. I don't care if Bitcoin solves 20% or 50% of the problems, if it creates 20% or 50% of the problems.
I have many thoughts on this. Obviously we disagree a lot about stuff like this, but I do definitely agree that like we don't want some like rift forming of the people who have Bitcoin and the people who don't have Bitcoin. Yeah. And those people who don't have Bitcoin, instead of being like, hey, maybe I should go buy some Bitcoin, instead having them be like, oh no, we need to destroy.
We need to get rid of Bitcoin. Yeah.
Fortunately, I mean, hopefully, unlike a lot of other things that divide society, you can just go out and buy Bitcoin.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, you can also go out and change your opinion on any sort of strongly held political belief that you have,
but to a large extent, it's like hard or impossible to change your race or your sex or your sexual orientation, right? So those things are things that you can imagine rifts forming around them and not,
But I think like right now, the problematic rifts in our society are not between the races or the genders or the sexes or whatever. It's like between like polarity of political opinion.
Yeah, but a lot of that is sort of like semi-economic. It's like a rural-urban divide to some degree.
Yeah, for sure. But I think like the polarity of opinion is like a huge issue. And I think like the more that we can make Bitcoin not a polarity of opinion type of issue where it's like, yeah, me and my friends do this and like you and your loser friends own this shitcoin or whatever. Like when you create this like tribalism, like I think that like the political tribalism is such a huge problem. And I think like the only way to get out of it is to opt out. And I think we have to like evolve past it or something.
Fortunately, there are like pretty strong incentives to adopt Bitcoin. Like unlike other things, which are like maybe there's outgroup and outgroup does something you like and you would never do that. It's kind of hard for Bitcoin to remain in the outgroup if there's a financial incentive to start using it. If it's like a better savings technology, a better payments technology with Lightning, like I think that is the erosive force that will get people who are no coiners now to eventually use Bitcoin.
I think
they'll just be like, it makes me better off.
I think that that's true for like that could be true. I don't know that is true because I think there are a lot of people who work against their best interests all the time. And like they do it for stupid ideological
the real
reasons.
Cucks.
Yeah. Like I think there's a lot of people in society that are like completely okay with losing as long as they get to feel like vindicated in their loss. And so if they hate Bitcoin people or they hate Bitcoin or whatever, they'll never buy it even if it ruins their life.
I actually disagree.
I know. I think you disagree. Like I don't think that people act rationally.
Okay,
and I think that's the disagreement. Yeah. But what I will say is I think like if businesses are adopting Bitcoin, if it becomes easier to pay for things in Bitcoin, to use Bitcoin like in day-to-day life, I think that overcomes a lot of ideological barriers like in a market way, like what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think on an individual basis, people are perfectly fine ruining their lives for stupid reasons.
What happens, but a lot of the time people don't really they talk the talk, but they don't really walk the walk. You have people who are very, maybe they're super concerned about the environment. And then you look at their actual lifestyle and it's indistinguishable from the lifestyle of somebody who doesn't have such vocal concerns about the environment, right? Sure. Or I have a lot of friends who are very vocal anti-capitalists. And like, what do? They work as software engineers making like $200K a year, working at like DoorDash or something, right? Like, so...
But I think like that's where the practical element of like if you just get paid in Bitcoin or you pay in Bitcoin, like if certain like elements of our society just like become Bitcoin dominated or like, having a savings account in Bitcoin becomes easy and practical to do, all these sort of things. Like I think the more ubiquitous and easy it becomes, like, yes, I agree that like at some point, like the rational elements just start taking over. But as it is right now, you have to opt in to Bitcoin, even if it's easy, even if you can just buy $5 worth very easily on your phone. Like
it's
still
gonna be
right
crazy
now, it's an
once
opt-in.
like everybody has a bank account. Banks for sure seem like they're going to start letting people buy Bitcoin at some point.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to be cray.
Yeah.
When like everybody on like a B of A can just hit like buy $5 worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah. And that's sort of like my rational maximalist argument is I think like there is like an inevitability of like financial institutions turning over to Bitcoin or like big financial players recognizing the utility and value of Bitcoin and like I just think that what they decide what like will happen with money is what's going to happen.
Right.
And fortunately, I also think that like whether they're aware of it or not aligns like with anti-corporate values. Like, I think they don't realize like what they're doing to
anti-crony capitalism, right?
Sure.
Like
yes,
easy money, like
exactly. I think they like will be a part of their demise in a way that they don't understand because they like are hungry for like greed and independence from government. And I'm just like, let's go, you know? So that's sort of like my rational like maximalism argument. And then I have like, you know, I just think the vibes are good.
The vibes are good. Yeah. So. Who are your favorite maximalists? Your top Bitcoin maximalist? I
mean, I like hate I don't like any like Bitcoin influencers.
Yeah.
Like I honestly like just don't vibe really with like, I like the memes. I like the crowd. I mean, cause I feel like the sort of like 4chan style Bitcoin maximalism, like people making memes and like people just sort of like being like trolly on the outskirts. Like I like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like I'm all about like the stupid memes, like the stupid behavior, but I don't know, the kind of, I feel like it's really difficult right now to be like a political or like cultural influencer because like you're forced to have a hot take about everything. Because like Bitcoin maximalism primarily exists on Twitter, and Twitter like incentivizes having a hot take about everything. And I think like when you have hot takes about everything, it's like maybe there's going to be like one person who like every hot take I agree with. Like maybe Marianne Williamson for me.
I know who that is. Oh yeah, I know who she is. Yeah.
Like Crystal Orb lady. Maybe Marianne Williamson, every take she has, I agree with. But I'm pretty sure that's not true. But like for the most part, like when you're just forced to like generate like hot take after hot take after hot take because like Twitter is your platform, which like the Bitcoin maxis are all like huge Twitter users.
Yeah.
It's
and
just
they're all just engagement farming. They're all just pump Bitcoin is good, like every day, each tweet.
I mean, that's like literally Michael Saylor's Twitter account.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. It's just I don't really resonate with like any of that kind of culture, and so like
I was just thinking mostly like who are the canonical Bitcoin maximalists?
I mean, Michael Saylor.
Yeah, the other guy I think of is Giacomo Zucco. Giacomo, some Italian version of Jack Zucco.
Okay.
He's he's just the forerunning toxic Bitcoin maximalist. Like he'll just get in Twitter threads and like just talk shit and just tell everybody to fuck off and that everything is a scam and that like everything that isn't Bitcoin will be like absorbed into Bitcoin and like.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Bitcoin maxi culture also, I think like subscribes to the same, they would not admit this, but they subscribe to the same ideology as like woke cancel culture where it's like you have like purity tests for maximalism and once you like don't like, you know, once they cancel you for like investing in whatever thing or like not being like a true enough maxi, it's like you're done.
Yeah. And I've worried about like, you know, for example, like I think Ethereum is like pretty crappy, like pretty incredibly crappy. Like the development's bad, the technology's bad, a lot of problems there. But I don't think that everything on Ethereum is bad. And so like I think a lot of interesting experimentation is happening there. A lot of like garbage is also happening there.
Well, it's a better culture. It's a more open culture for people to like who maybe aren't like into crypto or into whatever to like build things on top, which can be bad because it's like they unknowingly create a scam.
I think it's actually just harder to build on Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the tools are a little bit less flexible.
Sure.
So people naturally, when they want to do something weird, they kind of do it. They gravitate towards Ethereum.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, my sort of feeling, and you probably disagree with this, is like.
But wait, the point that I wanted to get to is that I've just been worried about like, maybe I want to do like an Ethereum NFT because I just have some cool art. And I'm like, no, if I do an Ethereum NFT, and we're not talking like some like 10,000 like ape pictures, like just some cool like generative art, you know. But I'm like, no, if I do that, I'll be labeled forever as a shitcoiner.
Totally. Yeah. And well, to be honest, you will be a shitcoiner if you do that.
Exactly.
Like, I'll cancel you. I mean, don't do that because don't do that. But I agree. It's like it is this like.
But it's lame. It's like there are interesting things happening on Ethereum. Most of them are bad. And most of them are like kind of disastrous, but it is an interesting room for experimentation. And in a way that makes Bitcoin kind of stronger in two ways. One is the more Bitcoin goes, the more Ethereum goes and goes on and like the ecosystem doesn't produce anything of value, the more it strengthens Bitcoin maximalism. The more we can go look at Ethereum, 99% of the things there are garbage. There's not a lot of really useful stuff. And it's like a hive of experimentation, so we can be pretty secure that Bitcoin isn't like missing anything, right? And then the second part is that if there is something useful that's developed there, very useful, then we could like add it to Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I think I feel like that works for like people who are into crypto, right? Where it's like, yeah, okay, people who maybe are like, they own some Bitcoin, they own some Ethereum, they own some like various shitcoin, altcoin things, like they will gradually move towards Bitcoin the longer that they are like seeing the way things go. But I think for like normies, like I have so many friends who only own Ethereum, they don't own any Bitcoin, and it's because stuff's happening on Ethereum.
Exactly.
And like they will get hurt and burned from that. So that's, I think the argument is like, it's more like a no coiner, like normie. Harm reduction for normies.
Yeah, normies should just buy. Yeah, and it's terrible. Like the Ethereum ecosystem is so tolerant of tokens. You can do anything on Ethereum and attach a token to it, and nobody will criticize you and say like, hey, that token is like unnecessary, or that it even makes the project worse, right?
Yeah.
Like Ethereum's version of the Lightning Network is something called Raiden that they sort of started developing at the same time as Lightning Network because like they can't scale. And the people who are developing Raiden were like, hey, we're going to make this Lightning Network, but you need a token to like send around this like Lightning Network. And everybody was like, okay, fine, but it makes the project much worse. It hasn't gone anywhere. Like because of that, because the community is way too tolerant of
but that's
like
scam
bullshit
token. That's scammy, right? Like
I
create a token because you want like value and money to come out of your token. It is like, I think that's just like a scammy inclination. Whether that's like consciously being realized in people's brain or not, it is like ultimately.
Yeah, it's a scam culture.
It's a scam culture.
It's a poisoned culture. It's not good. Yeah. It's too bad. I mean, there are a bunch of things that will come to Bitcoin, I think, that will enable a lot of that kind of wild experimentation.
Well, that's why I think you should just like be the Bitcoin NFT guy. Like just believe in yourself.
I am. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I came up with a wacky ass way to do NFTs on Bitcoin precisely because I didn't want to get canceled by the Bitcoin maximalists.
Yeah.
And I want to make Bitcoin better, right? Like and like
do it out of love, not out of fear.
Yeah, that's the main driver.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But it's like I do think it's a problem that Ethereum has all the art. Have you seen Bitcoin art? Like it's dog shit. It's all like self-referential. It's all like just a big golden bee in like different forms, right?
Know.
That's not good art,
it's
right?
So bad.
It's fun propaganda, but it's not good art. And Ethereum has like all this wild, crazy shit. A lot of the generative art on Ethereum is legitimately good. Most of the NFT shit is like terrible, but you know, normies like monkey pictures. And it's really sad that they get, right, these people who own Ethereum, a lot of them probably were like, oh, I want a monkey picture. And then they're like, oh, what's this like shitcoin, like Ethereum, like I'm going to buy some. Like we want to funnel those people to Bitcoin. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, no, it's, and I think that's like what I mean about like the toxic maximalism. It's like, it's not that like any one belief that they have is intrinsically toxic, like being a carnivore or whatever, like, you know, thing. It's like, give me enough like Jordan Peterson content and I'll probably believe in being a carnivore too. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I understand how people, like, I'm sympathetic to like the stereotypically Bitcoin maximalist beliefs, like, because I think I'm like sort of adjacent to it. But I think like the problem is like the not having an open tent. Right. Like, but maybe, I mean, it's like, I guess you could argue that like that also like they're intolerant to scammers. Like, whereas like Ethereum, like they're like, yeah, anyone can be here, including like nefarious people.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, Ethereum is a scam in the same way, like massive pre-mine, massive crowd sale, not a fair launch. And that has poisoned the culture from the beginning. Nobody can say to somebody like issuing a shitcoin on Ethereum, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have a shitcoin, because Ethereum itself is like so shitcoiny. Yeah. So we're Bitcoin maxis. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm sort of like here. Yeah. We're non-toxic, microplastic free Bitcoin maximalists. Exactly. BPA free Bitcoin maximalists. What else? I guess actually what I wanted to ask you about is
I mean, you've been in Bitcoin for a long time.
Since 2013.
I'm just curious how the culture of Bitcoin maximalism or the culture around Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it, has like changed since then.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I would say that back in the day, I'm thinking back, one early event that I sort of think back to when people ask me like, what was Bitcoin culture like, was 2013. I went to a Bitcoin conference. It wasn't, I don't know if it was a conference. Yeah, like a conference, like event. In San Jose. And it was one of the very first sort of Bitcoin events. I think there had been one maybe in Prague. But yeah, one of the first. And sometimes there's this picture of Andreas Antonopoulos, who went on to become like a, sort of famous Bitcoin influencer and educator, talking to an empty room. And this meme of like, that Bitcoin was like, this is like a picture from like back when Bitcoin was small. That was at that conference in San Jose. And so there wasn't as much of an identifiable Bitcoin maxi culture. Yeah, like it was like everybody was like kind of into Bitcoin, and a lot of people were there were some dev types, there were some anti-government types, there were some internet nerd types. Bitcoin maxi culture just hadn't coalesced at that time. And also I feel like the community was not as didn't have the same immune response against shitcoins.
Yeah.
I remember people talking about altcoins more like openly at that conference. I don't remember the details, but I just remember discussing some of them at that conference. And there wasn't that like all altcoins are scams kind of mentality. A lot of people definitely thought that altcoins were like not going to work and like bad ideas, but like the Bitcoin Max, that thing hadn't evolved. And so... Well,
there wasn't money. Like at that time, it's not like there was like huge amounts of money in any like Bitcoin or altcoins or whatever.
Right.
Like,
yeah. And Bitcoin maximalism has developed in reaction to outside events. So one thing that Bitcoin maximalism developed in reaction to was the ICO boom. Right. Once there was the boom of ICOs and all these like shitcoins back in, I don't know when it reached its zenith. Like, I feel like it was like 2016, maybe 2017. There was shitcoins everywhere, every kind of shitcoin you can imagine. And that's when people were like, okay, like to protect normies, we need to not just be like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. We need to be like, yeah, it's a scam. Everything but Bitcoin is a scam. Right. Stay with Bitcoin. And then the other event was the block wars, the big block size wars, the block size wars.
The block size wars.
Yeah. Where like there was all these like moneyed interests trying to influence Bitcoin.
Right.
And this like sort of core ideology of like toxicity that we need to fight these people. These people are trying to destroy Bitcoin. And they were. I mean, they were trying to move Bitcoin in a much, much worse direction. And that we didn't just need to have reasoned technical debate in public. We need to fight them, and we need to fight dirty, because they are aggressors. They're aggressing, and we need to attack them and make them retreat.
So I would argue that style of Bitcoin maximalism is not toxic. I think like when people talk about, I understand.
What is toxicity?
So, okay. I think what makes Bitcoin maximal culture, whatever, what makes it toxic is that it's excluding normies and like other people from getting into Bitcoin. I don't think that Bitcoin people being anti-shitcoins, anti-Ethereum or whatever makes normies anti-Bitcoin. Right. I think it makes like shitcoiners, Ethereum people, whatever you want to call them, like they don't have a term necessarily, crypto people, anti-Bitcoin. So I think that's where I differ from a lot of people. Is I think a lot of people think the problem with toxic Bitcoin maximalism is that it makes other crypto people not go to Bitcoin. And I think the problem with Bitcoin like maxi culture is that it makes people not buy Bitcoin that don't have any involvement in crypto. And that to me is more related to like the personal and political affiliations. Like normies don't care that Bitcoin maxis are like, fuck Ethereum or like fuck Dogecoin or whatever thing. Like,
Normies don't care. Yeah, they don't need to be.
So like, I understand that that's like toxic to other crypto people, but I kind of feel like if you're into crypto, you just should learn and know better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's
like the water's warm.
I'm not that sympathetic to people who are like, I hate that Bitcoin maxi people are so mean to me. Like, just because I have a .eth at the end of my username. It's like, whatever.
Fuck them.
Like, get over it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about that kind of toxic maximalism. What I don't like is like the toxic maximalism that like is like very like politically aligned.
Well, it's like there's like toxic maximalism who their form of like toxic maximalism is fighting against the shitcoiners.
Yeah.
But most people aren't shitcoiners. Most people aren't normies, and so they should.
Most people are no coiners.
So they're no. Well, a no coiner is, I think, a pre-coiner. A no coiner is somebody who's anti all crypto.
Okay, it's like a pre-coiner.
They're pre-coiners. Yeah, they're pre-coiners.
Fiat coiners.
Yeah. So like they shouldn't be doing something that like repulses this like small minority that attacks a small minority. They should be doing something that is appealing to the large majority.
Exactly.
And like this inside baseball, like attacking like this weird like internal like culture war. People outside of crypto are going to be like, what?
And if anything, people actually, I think, would be sympathetic to it, because I think a lot of people outside crypto hate Ethereum and NFTs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're
gamers hate NFTs.
Yeah, they think it's like disgusting, or like, you know, they think it's like crony or scammy, or like they think the way that a Bitcoin maxi does.
Yeah.
They don't realize that Bitcoin is separate from that. So I actually think Bitcoin very fundamentally distinguishing itself from other cryptocurrencies is a net positive. And I don't think that that's toxic. Like I feel like if you are a Bitcoiner and you like believe in Bitcoin, like you shouldn't be like super into other cryptos or be like, or like you should recognize that like there's some sort of moral implication in like being into these cryptos that you think inevitably will fail, because like it will hurt people when they fail.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think like you should understand that. And if you don't understand that, then like there's something, you know, whatever, that's like not clicking. And not that like you should be cruel to those people, but like I understand like people being argumentative or like disagreeable towards that group. Yeah. But I think like if Bitcoin distinguished itself from other cryptos, like my mom, my friends, like all these people, they don't know that Bitcoin is different from other cryptos. Right. It's all the same.
Yeah. Like, I've had so many weird conversations with people where like they're like, oh, Bitcoin, like isn't that like a prototype? And like Ethereum is like way better.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Like go talk to the best Bitcoin developers and then go talk to the Ethereum developers. Ethereum developers, it's like, they're like children. They're like moronic children that are like, oh, look, I'm going to make this big tower out of Legos and maybe it'll solve all our problems.
I was talking to this guy who's like, I met like a friend of a friend who's like 21 and he's like an Ethereum Solidity developer. And like, it was really like, I was like, damn, like I don't even want to like ruin this guy's party. Yeah. Like he's like a kid. Like he just, he didn't know like anything about
how do they like even like really basic things like having like, you know, okay, like proof of stake, right? Hot topic. Yeah. Right. And like, so proof of stake, like if you have 50% of the stake and you run a validator, you're going to have 50% of the stake tomorrow. Nobody can do something that causes your stake in the network to go down. Whereas proof of work, anybody can turn on a Bitcoin miner and start competing with you for your percentage rate of hash rate. Like it's an open competitive market. And this is like such a basic point. And they're like ETH true believers who I tell this to, and they're like, I never thought about that.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. It is like,
bro, what are you doing?
That's what I mean. Like, I think like the people that like, you know, work in crypto, like have like a significant chunk of their brain power going towards thinking about these things, who don't realize like why Bitcoin is better. I'm just not that sympathetic to them. Really? I don't think that you should be mean to them. Like, I don't think you should be hateful towards them. And like, I don't think that they're consciously being like scammy or evil or whatever. But I don't feel that sympathetic, because I feel like they should know better, you know? Yeah. Or they need to like think a little deeper or something. But it's like the normies. Yeah. Like I feel like like don't make it so that like Bitcoin is only a thing for like Texan libertarian carnivore, whatever. Like, don't make it this like political thing.
Do you think like, is there anything we can do? Like, I mean, how can we like?
I'm like, you're not typical Bitcoin.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, being some representation to the
Yeah. Like, I just get some estrogen up in this bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, like, I mean, I feel like this is controversial, and I don't know, people don't like when I say this, but like I think like Bitcoin culture being on Twitter is hugely destructive.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
I think Twitter sucks. It's like it's the easiest way to nuke your movement. Like you just, it's Bitcoin maxi culture, like it being on Twitter, which is like designed
Twitter
for like
just
hot takes
so
and
toxic.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Twitter, so it's like I think like the toxicity of Twitter is a lot of why Bitcoin maxi culture is toxic. And I think like having your culture be on Twitter, like that's exactly what happened
defined
to like
by Twitter.
Yes.
Like that is the culture.
Yes. And that's like the exact same thing that happened to like journalism and like that sort of like woke leftism. Like all of it was on Twitter, and it all became so like stupid and pointless and toxic. And like now like saying something like social justice, which has meaning, and like I actually like think I believe in social justice, but like I can't even say that anymore because social justice is like such a stupid meme at this point. And it's because of like Twitter and the culture around Twitter and like the people that are like social justice warriors like on Twitter. And I think that's a
like
huge
where do you
problem with
tell a
maxi culture.
normie to go to get like the good Bitcoin culture, you know?
I try to just talk to them.
Yeah, but like,
Hell Money Podcast.
what do you do that scales? You know, like that's the problem is that Twitter scales, right? Twitter can reach everybody. Everybody just plugs into the internet hate machine, you know?
I mean, that's like partially why I want to have this podcast, you know? Like, because I do think like long form conversation gets around it.
I agree. Yeah. And like, you know, if when you have podcast episodes where you have Bitcoin maximalists on the podcast, their views are much more nuanced than
100%.
And they
100%.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Twitter, like it, like, okay, you have like 240 characters to respond. You can't have a nuanced point. You have to just dunk on your opponent as hard as you can in like the simplest terms.
You have to quote tweet something somebody stupid said and then dunk on them so that everyone can reply and tweet. Like, it's just like such a shitty platform. What's the deal with Urbit? Like,
what's the deal with Urbit?
Can we move to
Bring it
Urbit?
all back to Urbit. Yeah, I mean, Urbit is...
Like, I literally don't know anything
in
about
some ways,
Urbit,
that was a good transition. I don't know if you meant it, because like Urbit is like kind of the solution to all these problems.
That's why I'm asking. Like, is it like, could like Bitcoin people be into like Urbit or like some sort of like alternative social media? Like Urbit's the thing I think of like that like would create a better culture just intrinsically
that would
based on
be
the design.
awesome. Like, so Urbit, I mean, people probably don't know, Urbit is this project that was started like 12 years ago, maybe longer, who knows? I think it's older than Bitcoin. And it's a project to sort of build this computer. And when I say computer, I really just mean operating system. To build an operating system that really keeps the user in control. Everything is like, you like authenticate everywhere with private keys. There's no server client dichotomy where like, you know, your Twitter client just like snuffles at the trough of the Twitter server, right? It's a P2P architecture where everybody's a peer on this network exchanging content, basically. And your friends, everything is authenticated by private key, and so it's very secure. That's the model. So far, it has not taken off. There's sort of hardcore Urbit people who run Urbit, and you can get an Urbit ship right now. That's sort of the name for an Urbit computer. You can get an Urbit ship and run it, and sort of it's like I
want to plan it because I like that Urbit's like kind of astrology.
Yeah. I mean, don't you want a star?
Yeah, but isn't that really expensive?
Yeah, it is kind of expensive. Yeah.
Someone give me a star.
Yeah. Some Hell Money Podcast simp send Erin a star.
Yeah, exactly.
And not an empty star. It should have all its planets. Okay.
I want to create lore about my planet.
The
gods of different archetypes. That's my new polytheism.
Erin will probably turn into if you send Erin a star, she will turn into an Urbit influencer.
Yeah.
So 100%. You should do it. It would be good for Urbit, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I bring up Urbit. I feel like we can talk about whatever Urbit and but I bring it up just to be like, I feel like we need to be thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
if Bitcoin is this like truly revolutionary force for good, like why are we constrained to have the entire discourse and culture of it happen on like literally the worst social media platform for discourse? Yeah, well, I mean, like it sucks.
One problem in general is that it's just like Twitter is this. It's very easy. It's very scalable. People don't have to put a lot of effort in. They just like pump out a shitty little tweet, and that's their
not
contribution.
aligned with hard money values. That's fiat shit.
Yeah, I mean,
it is. In your it is fiat shit, but like that's getting your retweets.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that a lot of the time fiat is like sometimes it's what wins, you know, in this like low effort, like low quality.
I just think if you're a true Bitcoin maximalist, you shouldn't be into it. You know, you should have to work for your retweets.
Yeah. Well,
I want hard money social media.
People are making attempts at this. So there's something called Nostr, which is like kind of an alternative to Twitter, but it runs in a peer-to-peer way. There's a lot of projects, a lot of experiments. There's Secure Scuttlebutt, which isn't really, it's like a messaging thing like Twitter, but it's like more private, more secure. There's alternative to Twitters. There's like Mastodon, that like people have made like an alternative Twitterverse of these independent Twitter islands that can connect to each other. There's Urbit, like as we talked about. I think Urbit has some technical deficiencies that are going to make it hard to catch on, even though I'd like it to. But this is a world problem, not a Bitcoin problem.
I agree.
Yeah. And we just need to like, fortunately there's experimentation, and I hope something good comes along. I want something that like, I just want a really good, like semi-public way to connect with my friends. That isn't quite a public blog, and it isn't quite Twitter. That's some kind of like hybrid where it's like a blog that's really for my friends and that my friends comment on, and not like Twitter. Like if there was like long form Twitter with better privacy controls, I'd be into that. I'd be really into that.
Yeah. I mean, I think like part of like the problem with Twitter, I mean, you're talking about like basically a place for you to hang out.
Yeah.
I think like Twitter is like it is a place where people hang out because they want connection.
But it's the public square.
It's the public square in like the dumbest form. Like it's all about like engagement farming and like putting the take in that will get you the most like retweets, likes, whatever. Like, I mean, I sound like such a boomer, but it's just like
posting taken.
What?
Did you say posting taken will get you the most retweets or likes?
Hot takes.
Oh, hot takes.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what I said, but that's what I meant. Just like posting your like stupid hot take that's going to get like the most like it's just, I mean, whatever. Again, I sound like a boomer, but I just like think it's so, that's like where I think a lot of the toxicity lies. And that like just creates this like toxicity in the Bitcoin culture because it's all on Twitter. I mean, like maybe this is not the solution either, but I think like meetups help. Like my introduction to the like, because when I got into Bitcoin, like really into like Bitcoin exclusively was like because of meetups, like because I was into like crypto and I kind of like felt like Bitcoin, like I didn't really understand that like crypto and Bitcoin, like as I said, like I didn't understand it was like that different. Like I kind of knew that Bitcoin was like the one, like that was like, if anyone asked like, what's your favorite? I'd be like Bitcoin, like, you know, but like, I didn't like really know that there was like this antagonism between like Bitcoin and Ethereum or anything else. Like I didn't really like know, like I thought like the lore behind Bitcoin was intriguing and I thought it was like cooler, which is like so ridiculous to say because everyone else thinks Ethereum is cooler. But like, I don't know. I'm not that into like tech culture. I'm more into off the grid. Like I like the Bitcoin mining and like all of like just Bitcoiners are like cool to me. And so like I started going to meetups for crypto and Bitcoin and it was going to Bitcoin meetups that made me be like, wow, Bitcoiners are smart. Bitcoin is cool. I want to be like into this and not into like the rest of the shit. Yeah. And like, I don't know, ideally that's like what a Bitcoin culture creates is like something that like people are into and is like intellectually stimulating and like thought provoking and cool. And like, I don't know, maybe, you know, meetups in person are not like a solution for the digital age, but I do think that like the culture around Bitcoin meetups helps a lot for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But you're lucky that you didn't get like sidetracked into some shitcoin.
I mean, it just sucked. Like
you didn't turn into like an Ethereum hoe.
Yeah, but I just don't like the culture of it. Like it just wouldn't have happened. Yeah, like I am a Bitcoiner. You know?
Right. Yeah, you're more of a Bitcoiner than I am.
Exactly. Frankly. Yeah, like culturally. Like I think like it wouldn't have like stuck with me.
Yeah, I'm just like, I've kind of looked at everything and like it doesn't work. Bitcoin kind of works the best. Yeah. I'm
like, Bitcoin was an astrologically created phenomenon, the second coming. It's replacing Jesus. You know, like
that might be a good note to end the pod because next pod.
Astrology.
Bitcoin horoscope.
We're going Bitcoin astrology. Yeah. I'm the expert now.
Which What are the things that we're going to read the horoscope of? I mean, the Genesis block?
Definitely the Genesis block.
Satoshi?
Well, how would I know that? I don't know who Satoshi is. How would I know? I don't even know Satoshi's name. How am I going to know his time and place of birth?
Yeah, right.
I can only do Bitcoin things and like I'll figure out the best way to present it.
Okay.
But
I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be really good.
yeah, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So that's, my...
And I should read that book beforehand, the astrology book that you want
Yeah,
to read.
good luck. It's pretty long.
Read through it.
Yeah, skim.
Skim. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's end it then, I guess.
Look forward to that. Bitcoin astrology.
Yeah, fortifying my toxic Bitcoin maximalism with my
with
toxic
some mystical
astrological.
spirit. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for listening. I hope that we provided a nuanced and open and interesting
45 minutes talking about Italy and the Roman Empire. Yeah. I think that added a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And also, like the Bitcoin, they call themselves plebs, the plebeians.
Exactly.
Right?
There's so many
And
tribes.
you need plebeians. What do they need? They need a mythology.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Jesus.
That's Jesus. Yeah.
And we'll make the dolly, and that'll be the new, I'll put that on my ceiling so I wake up to it every morning.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for listening.
Yep.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.